Yeah, welcome. This is our second general meeting, and it's a collaboration with IEEE and ACM, and it's going to be all about research. And so, thank you guys for coming out. Appreciate it. So, yeah, so you probably know what ACM is, I hope. If not, you can come talk to me after. But we also have another club here that is also collaborating with us, and it's IEEE. And so I like to think IEEE is pretty much ACM, but for people that like to apply their stuff in real world stuff, and I think that's super cool. And they help you grow professionally, socially, academically, and technically. And so if you're pretty much in EE, make sure to check out IEEE. And we also have Solarcar, who's probably our primary collaborators. And David Young, would you like to say a little something about Solarcar?
Yeah, sure. So Solarcar is a project under IEEE. IEEE has a total of 4 projects, and each project has multiple sub-teams in which not only are these teams limited to just electronical engineers, but we also have many other majors such as business majors, CS majors, computer engineering majors, even some microbiology majors. So it's really truly a multidisciplinary project. And essentially what we do with Solarcar is we design, build, and test, and then finally race solar cars. And it's just going to be testing out various capabilities of those cars and really pushing the limits of solar technology. And if you guys think you guys are interested in something like this, go ahead, visit ucrsolarcar.com where you guys can learn more about solar cars.
Nice. You're going to make Tesla too, for sure. And so, yeah, here's the start of our GM. Without further ado, we have our Vice President, Justin Mazon, and he's going to be here to moderate our entire research now. So,
yeah, let's get started. So we're going to have a little Comic-Con session going on. So we're going to have the professors in the front and the students right beside them. And I'm going to be calling them one by one. And then once I call them up, let's give them a round of applause as they walk up. So yeah, let's begin. So yeah, we have 2 professors here today. We have Professor Eldway, and he is the associate professor at UCR Computer Science. He's right here, coming right up. And then our second professor we have today is Professor Chen. Woo! Also my teacher. All right, and then right beside him. Okay. And then we have 3 students. Get a round of applause for Akil. Secondly, we have Shaoyu. And last, we have Het. Yeah, sorry it's a little too close, but we try to fit everyone for the Zoom video we have. So, all right. So yeah, I will be asking questions about the research, and so the point of today is for the audience to hopefully pick something up about research opportunities and just go more in depth on how more people can be involved. So yeah, I have some questions prepared. And then this is the microphone, so we could pass it around, or I could just leave it on the desk. So yeah.
We have Akil, you prepared some slides, correct? To talk a little bit more about your research. Can you tell the audience what you have? So we have our first slide right here.
So mainly we have lots of projects in our lab, but we wanted to just introduce you 2 of them today. So the first one is called UCR Stack. So this is a visible catalog for spatial data sets. As you might already know, there are hundreds of spatial data sets available online, but it's not easy to see them, see the real values of them. So the goal of this project is making them available online for any person can use the internet. And right now it's it's published is almost 350 data sets on just single machine, and it's actually combines lots of research projects of our lab. And the research areas in this project is data exploration, visualization, or big data indexing, and so on. So this is the first project that we would like to introduce you, and we have another one. This is a like 13 years old project, which is like a combined project. Both involves UC Urban and UC Riverside, and this is like a big database management system. And also we are, as a lab, we are working on this project, and we are kind of like expanding the spatial capabilities of the ASTXDB, and also like adding some frameworks for developers to implement join algorithms easily, and so on. Like this is also another project that we would like to introduce you today, and these are kind of like projects that you can work with if you work with us. That's it.
Awesome, thank you.
Talk about the research and just give us like a quick peek, maybe so everybody else has a little bit of context before you dive into it. Professor Eldway, would you like to say what your primary?
Yeah, sure. So my research is mainly in databases and data management. So giving data, how to manage it correctly on a computer in a scalable way. And they focus on big data management. So think about data that grows beyond the capability of a single machine. So you want to be able to distribute this over multiple machines and be able to manage it well. The specific qualitative focus of my research is how to make this data available for data science, for non-computer science professors and researchers, right? So think about someone from, environmental science. They have some research that involves maybe satellite data, other sensor data, and you want to be able to scale this up. So that's where my research kicks in. So I want to see how existing big data systems can be further expanded and improved so that we can support these kind of things. So I usually like to start with a real application that someone already built, but we cannot scale well. And then my expertise is to take this application and show how we can scale this to a larger scale. So I have many success projects in the past. I'm still working on more things like Wildfire DB. This was a collaboration with Stanford. They had a model to generate wildfire-based data, and we were able to do it for a small part of California, and that's where they get stuck. I mean, the project was really good, but it just couldn't scale well for a larger scale. So I worked with them to be able to scale this to the entire US. So now we have data that covers the entire US. They have other projects that have similar story. We have like some supports on a small scale, either in terms of spatial or temporal, like maybe for a couple of years, but let's scale for 10 years, for example. That's where my expertise comes in, and analyze the project and see how we can expand this to work on a bigger scale.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you. My research is focused on signal processing, machine learning, and multi-view data analytics. So our focus is on algorithm design, how to bring multi-model data into the same space so we can compare the difference or the similarity among different types of data. So we can do those downstream tasks like classification, clustering, data visualization, and also some evaluating the importance of some factors that cause the data. And besides algorithms, on top of algorithm, actually we did not only develop the algorithm, but also do the theoretical analysis for the convergency and the optimality. And then besides, we also find interesting applications that, for example, last year we used the Google search data, which is basically how many times people have searched for those health-related symptoms such as fever, cold, short of breath. So we all know those data is publicly available. We brought a multi-view learning algorithm to compare the difference between 2019's search and the 2020's search. We all know the difference is basically COVID, right? So we were trying to use the algorithm to identify the unique symptoms that was caused by COVID, such as shortness of breath. But fever should not be found, even is in high search candidate. That's just one application. Also recently, we've been working in the NSF Center to use AI to empower cyber physical systems. And there we were trying to bring two high level different types of data together. One is network data, which give you an example is like a Facebook data, right? How people connect to each other. We know the connections. The other type of data is how you can use numerical thing to represent every user in the Facebook. But in cyber physical system, so the Facebook is like the traffic network and the users are like the vehicles. So we were trying to see whether we can bring machine learning model to analyze the traffic, also analyze the similar patterns among the vehicles. And yeah, I think overall we are trying to find the shared and the discriminating information between different types of data to draw some conclusions. And in terms of application, I think those two students can probably bring more. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, now that we've heard more about the research and how that works, I have a question for the students. How did this process begin as becoming a undergraduate or graduate researcher, and what advice would you give to someone who's, looking to find research here at UCR? What opportunities do you think is available for them? So we go one by one.
So like, at the beginning, so you usually, pick your advisor, right? So before starting your research. And while doing that, of course, you have to have some idea about like what you like to work on and like, which projects kind of like excites you. And then you start with like, looking the projects of advisors have. And then if you see some, potentials, you can just like, approach them and ask for project ideas, or like if you have some project ideas, you can get in touch them with your ideas and see that if it's like a good match with the advisor or not, right? So then like, of course, after you have this, connection with the professor, it's all like about like, you and your professor, like how you, treat the problem and how you, want to bring a solution to it. And it's like a long journey afterwards. So like you first start to some maybe background check, like a literature survey maybe. And then you can start to come up with new ideas as like two solutions. And then along the way you try to develop, solutions with your advisor. So it's like a general thing.
And then Shaoyu, how did the process go for you?
So I think, if you just like look at all the professors that we have on campus, like everyone is like super talented, like comes from everywhere, right? All of like the prestigious universities and all that. But just to like get into it, I say just like stay curious. Just like look into the professor's research. You can find them all over the website and online. But after taking some classes, just like like ask questions, right? Be just like have to like get to that mindset of like wanting to learn more, wanting to understand like problems, and just like just stay curious throughout. Just don't let that go, and ask around. And a lot of professors have a lot of different works, and you'll find something that you can fit into. But yeah.
For me, it started out by there was I think it's women in computer science. They were hosting a meeting night where a lot of professors came in to talk about their research. So you basically had an option to pick 3 of them and talk to them. So for me, I just looked into their research, talked to them, and then saw there were certain ones where I was a good fit for. So I talked to them a lot more. And then I also approached professors in all my classes, Professor Chen being one of them. And it turns out that what I wanted to do just fit with what professor was doing. And so I just approached her, asked her if there was anything I could help with. And she said I could come to the meeting and we can see. So usually you can also look online on the UCR website, see if there are any professors that are doing anything similar to what you're interested in. And then maybe just approach them, maybe send them an email. They can probably get on a Zoom call with you and just go on from there.
Awesome. And then for the professors, so say you are looking for, one more student that you need to fill for a role for your research. What type of experience are you looking for, or like what type of like personality traits are you looking for someone to, work under you as a assistant or researcher?
First,
You are more experienced.
okay. So when I want to work with new students, I usually look for two things. Right, I ask them two broad questions: what they did in the past, and what they want to do in the future. Right, so understand the past and the future. So what they did in the past helps me understand what they are capable of right now, and there is usually no like right or wrong answer. It just depends on how their expertise matches what I want. Right. So for example, someone says, "Oh, I know C++ very well, but I don't know Java." Right? Someone knows JavaScript, but maybe not something else. So I need to understand what they are capable of, what they know already, what they are ready to work on. And then the future part is, what do you want to get out of this project, right? So be ready to answer a question like that. And I give you like possible answers, but again, like just a way to see the match between what the students needs and wants and what I can provide to them. But possible answers could be, a student wants to pursue graduate school in the future, right? You want to graduate and then go to master or PhD. Then they probably need to know more about research, get more experience with how research works, maybe get a publication that they can add to their CV so that they get accepted to a prestigious graduate program. Some other students who just want to go for kind of experience, just want to apply what they learned, maybe learn new things, just apply them in a project. Then I can assign them a different project that is more like hands-on experience. They build something that they can maybe display to other, maybe put in their CV or display to other people, give them more knowledge of what they are working on. So it's usually these two questions that lay out the expectations from the students and what I can provide to them. In terms of like specific, like tools or specific framework that they need to know, I don't think there is like one good answer to that. I think it depends on the project that you work on. But I would say in general, just knowing things like data structures and algorithms, you need to be good in knowing that. Learning, like self-learning, is also important. I don't expect the student to come to me and ready to work. I expect the students to learn something. Actually, my goal from working with the students is that they learn something. So as long as you're learning something new, I consider myself successful. It's not that you need to deliver something, right? But I need to make sure that you have the basics, right? So like basic programming skills, software construction, you need to make sure that you are good in that. You know how to debug a program that fails, like basic programming skills. So these are the things that really the basics that I need to know that the students have. Now, in terms of like specific languages, I'm willing to spend time and invest time with the students learning something new, and then they can start to build something after that. But just the basics, like these basic programming skills and software construction, are really important.
Thank you, Professor Chen.
Those are definitely very valuable guidance, not only for students, but also for myself. I actually took a little bit of different pathways when I approached graduate and undergraduate students. And so for graduates in the past, because I knew they had to graduate, I'm talking about master students, right? In 2 years or 2.5 years at most. And then I usually expect them to have programming experience, at least one programming language, not necessarily Python, MATLAB, say C++, Java, all fine, as long as you are good, or don't need to be excellent. You know how to use that, as Ahmed mentioned, you know how to debug that. That's very important, because we honestly don't have time to look into the code line by line. So that's one expectation I usually want. And the other thing is some basic understanding of math. So for example, simple question I may ask is, how do you understand about single value decomposition, right? I mean, I did not expect you know all the perspectives of that, but you should come up with some reasonable comments on the algorithm. And that's another thing. I mean, if someone has some machine learning algorithm background, it's preferred, but usually I did not require. This is because I'm always in electrical and computer engineering department. So in ECE, it's a little bit different from CS in the sense the population of students who are familiar with machine learning is a little bit lower than that in CS. So I don't require, but that will be preferred. So basically, to summarize, when I was looking for graduate students, I hope they have some basic match to my field. Let's say someone is working on material science, semiconductor devices, right? And their interest probably will not be aligned with my field very well. So in this sense, I would recommend them to talking to other professors. You know, that would be better for them and for myself. But for undergraduate, I actually decided, no, I started to work with undergraduate in 2022. So, so I have limited experience, but I would be happy to share if that's helpful for you. For undergraduate, I only announced that in my class, and because I want to get exposed to students, you know, so that whoever is interested can talk to me, and we will explore the research fields, research projects together. So usually what my approach is to put them in groups, and if you have the interest, I do not have very strong requirement for you have to take big data or AI or machine learning classes. But usually students have programming language at UCL, so that's very good. And then I come up with some projects, put them into groups, and they will have the self-learning pace. I will give my inputs. So my hope is similar to what Ahmed mentioned, as long as at some point they can learn something, I feel appreciated and very happy about that. And delivery or not, this really depends. So I don't expect everyone to deliver in half a year or 1 year. But the bottom line is, I hope everyone is improving to some degree during the collaboration. You know, just do not stay the same as the first day we talked. All right. Well, I think that's basically the approach.
Can I add just one more point?
Yeah.
I mean, one thing else that is common in research that you need to be experienced with, and I talk about this specifically because I see many students are lacking this skill, is working with existing projects. Like, don't expect, especially as an undergraduate, to start a project from scratch. It's usually easier to start from scratch because you control everything in the code. You write it in the way you want. But in research, you'll typically work with an existing code. So you need skill of getting an existing code, understanding it, and start modifying it and playing with it, fixing a bug in it. So that's something that I see many students are lacking. I think it's something you can get experienced with. Just getting existing code, working with it, and be familiar with that.
Totally agree. Yeah.
So that actually brings me to my next question for the students. What are like some of the benefits of having this position as a researcher compared to just like some personal project that may not be as credible as working with professor? And also, how have you balanced your work life with other activities or other classwork?
Like I can start. So like research projects usually have their own type of problems. So, and these type of problems are not like easy to find in other projects, like other than research projects. So that's what I observed. So I wasn't actually an experienced person before joining Dr. Eldway's lab. And like before that time, I was feeling like, oh, I'm a good programmer. I can like solve problems, and I love problem solving. And I was feeling really, confident about all these things. But when the research problem starts, to come on my desk, I realized that like it's something else. Like, it's a completely different world than, the like real life project, industrial projects. And it really taught me like lots of stuff because, you have to handle, like, let's say, you have to handle like, you know, you are working on a project and you are working on a problem, and like you are the only one probably who can give an answer to it. Even sometimes your advisor, like even though they are like very well experienced, they know every like lots of stuff about that problem, they are sometimes like, you know, the meetings like usually become something like a discussion on the problem, and you are the one who can only solve that problem. So that's like a really kind of unique experience that you can find on a research project. And so like this experience is quite valuable for me. And after all these like, you know, years, I learned a lot out of this. So that's the, you know, only thing I can say.
Yeah, I say like, so like professors, like they have like the experience and then like the guidance. So a lot of times like when you're kind of stuck on like, you know, like really narrow solutions and just like your background, your own background is just like what you know from your classes. But there's like the field is like so vast and you can only learn so much in 10 weeks for like a specific field like in the course. But when you like get into research, I guess there's like you'll find so many more like places that you can kind of find yourself in, and then with like the help of professors, they can kind of like give you more like, you know, there's a lot of like self-reading and self-learning to do, where that's like you have to manage your time through that, which is like can be difficult depending on like how much you have. But just like these discussions that can just benefit so much more, because you yourself will normally find or feel like if you're doing your own projects and your own research, you can find like blogs and stuff about algorithms, but you're always going to be ending like digging yourself into a rabbit hole that just like more and more keywords and all these like things that you just don't understand, and it's sometimes depending on how like hard or how kind of niche your project is, like idea is, you can sometimes be just like really stuck on a problem that like many of your peers, you know, may not quite understand as well. So it just gets a little bit hard, but yeah.
For me, I think one of the big benefits of research is you learn to work with others. You might be in a small group project, or you might be doing something on your own, but there will be other students that are also working on research, that they might be able to help you with something you don't understand, something you don't know. Also, if the projects of the students are kind of similar, they can send you resources or help you understand certain things that you don't know yet. And one thing I say about research compared to doing your own personal projects is the rate at which you learn for research is a lot faster. Because when you're doing your personal projects, sometimes you just stay in your comfort zone and not try to push yourself. Whereas in research, you have to just step out there, read documents that you kind of don't understand fully, read them over and over again. And like it just pushes you to improve a little bit faster. One more thing I would say is like, for the time, usually the way I approach it is every week I'll just look at my entire schedule and just see like, oh, I have a couple hours here, I'll dedicate it to research, and then I have like a few hours here. So I just plan it ahead of time and then just go with that.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, so for this question, this is for anyone who wants to answer, but how has the social and like team atmosphere been, and how has that been like attributed to connections and like talking to people and finding branching off into more of your interests? But yeah, anyone can answer this one.
I can start. Yeah. During my PhD, in the beginning, I mainly worked on my own with the assistance of my advisor. So for maybe 2 years. Then in the third year, I started to work with another PhD student. And it's so much better feeling, you know, because you know something, they know something else. So you can come up with a new idea that definitely benefits both. And also, we are all stuck at some point. So I think having another person working on the same or similar project is it's really pushing things smoothly forward. And so that's my, I think that's the experience. I only work for another lab because we were in a small group, so they were only 4 PhD students. When I was doing my postdoctor, and so we can say the group is huge, including undergraduate researchers, PhD students, postdoctors, and visiting PhD students, visiting professors. So that's a bigger group. I cannot say I experienced collaborating with each component, but I have visualized some of the collaborations. And so one thing come out is very helpful is the group meeting. And in the group, people bring their recent discoveries in research in different sub-projects. And most of the time, the ideas they are using could trigger your new ideas. So I think definitely working with other people, either on the same project or on similar project or on different projects, will really open our brain so we can come up with better ideas easier than working on our own. So I always appreciate opportunities working with others. Now, as a faculty now, I'm also excited about collaborating with groups in STEM or non-STEM. Like we established the long-term collaboration with a group working on psychological science, and that's totally different field for us. But we can bring the advances of machine learning in that data analytics. So overall, I think working with other people definitely is good.
Awesome. Everyone else like to answer?
Yeah, so let me add something. I mean, first, I agree to all what Jia mentioned, like how talking to people can just inspire you with new ideas. You see what they are doing and you start to think of new solutions, and I completely agree with that. But I want to add also 2 more points. One point is that when you talk to other people, you force yourself to explain your problem in a different way. With everyone you talk to, you start to explain your problem in a different way. So it helps you yourself, even without just knowing what they are doing, by just explaining your problem to them, the idea you start to think about it in a different way, okay? And you start to understand it better, right? You start to simplify it, which makes it easier for people to understand and easier for you as well to understand. Sometimes you work for so long and you get, immersed in the details and you forget about the big picture. But then when you talk to other people, you start to explain to them, they start to ask you questions as well. Okay, why do you do that, right? Why don't you do something else? So you start to try to, revise the idea yourself in your mind and start to explain it in a different way, and then try to find the higher level problem that you're actually trying to solve. So that's one thing that will help you just socializing with people and talking to them. The other thing is that, let's say you have the best idea in the world, right? But you keep it for yourself. Well, it's useless, right? You're just keeping it for yourself and no one's really benefiting from it. No one knows that this is a good idea. When you talk to other people, they start to know what you're working on, and they'll probably, if they like it, you can be, ambassadors for your work. You can talk to others about what you're doing. Say, oh, I know this person who works on this problem. You might find someone else who's working on a relevant problem and start connecting you with each other. You say, oh, go talk to this person who's working on a very interesting solution. He can help you. So just talking to people, build these connections, allows your idea to flow to more people, right? Go to more people, and then they can come back to you. You never know who really will benefit from your work. So you can talk to 50 people and only 2 or 3 of them really end up, using your work. But that's good, right? That's okay. Just keep talking to people, and eventually someone will come back to you with the reward in terms of, just talking about your work or connecting you with someone else.
Awesome, thank you. So for the students, have you ever faced a technical difficulty or hardship and with your research, and then how did you overcome it?
I think like every single day we are having that kind of problems. So like, maybe like connected with the previous question. So like having somebody like around you, like who worked on that project before, or like, who has some relevant experience is definitely helpful in that type of situations. For example, like currently I'm working on a textile project, and it's a very long, very old project, and lots of researchers worked on it, and the code base is huge, and it's like a whole database system. And you are trying to implement something on it, and it requires you to spend hours and hours just like trying to understand how the code works there, right? So like instead of just like spending your days on it, you can just like ask somebody, like ask another researcher who worked like on a similar problem, and you can get some help from them. So that's really helpful in that type of situation. So like having lab mates around you and having some other researchers around you like definitely helps like to to overcome this type of struggles. That's something.
Yeah, it's just really like it's good that professors like create these like groups, so there's people that you can talk to, because a lot of times, I mean, like I find like these projects, even if you like search online, sometimes you just get back the original research paper, and there's not like there's not a lot of people working at there's so many like research projects out there. It's just like hard to actually find an answer online. So working with people who are actually like also just testing things out, you guys can just like collaboration ultimately just makes everything easier. And yeah, it's just talk to people.
For me, if it's like a code problem that I'm not understanding, it's usually what like every coder does, Stack Overflow or Google or YouTube. And if it's like I still can't find something and there's something wrong that I can't figure out, then for my project, I have a partner. I would just message him on Discord, see if like they face similar problems. If not, then just talk to the professor, don't know what's going on, or other people in the different projects. They might have some experience with it. Yeah, usually I haven't had any crazy problem that I wasn't able to figure out. So.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, would any of the audience members have a question to ask any of the professors or students? Yeah, back there.
How often do you guys like take freshman and sophomore researchers?
Can you repeat the question? So
How often do you guys like employ like freshmen and sophomore undergraduate researchers?
So I do work with undergraduate students. In terms of, I did work in the past with freshmen and sophomores. Not, I'd say, most of the time I would look for students who at least finished, like software construction, they know more about software. So at that point, we can find something we can work on. But the majority of the undergraduate students I work with are like third year, like, like junior, seniors. But I did work in the past with students who were like just first year. Maybe started working right away. But at that point, I need at least to make sure that we can program, right? We can write, C++ or Python or Java, like some programming language that they're familiar with, so that we can provide, start working on something.
Anyone else? Yeah, right there.
Yeah. So I don't know that like the time scale of a typical research project would be. So would you be at that point where it's like too late for an undergrad to join the project because he's like already in his last quarter or something?
I can try to answer this. Yeah, if it's the last quarter, it might be a little bit difficult. But if one student has very strong background and experience, and I think 1 quarter will be enough to get something done. And even for most PhD students, right, when they graduate, in most cases they have not finished every project, so they will still have the continuous work with their current or the past advisor. Like for myself, when I graduated, I still had something unfinished. So I think if a student is very self-motivated and interested in finishing a project, even the last quarter would be okay. But it's not recommended, So if you can identify your interest earlier, let's say the third year, right? It's definitely better than in the last quarter.
Yeah, I think in general, we expect the student to spend some time learning and then start, producing some results. Someone joining in the last quarter, in that case, we expect them to be, fully ready to just start working right away. For myself, I usually try to adjust my projects to be 10-week projects, like just fit for a quarter. I usually like to start at the beginning of the quarter, deliver something by the end of the quarter. So I try to find projects that can finish in a quarter. But if it's the last quarter and there's no time to learn something first, then you're either ready to do something right away or it might be too late at that point.
To you, and then
I was going to build off this question. Like, does research also occur during like the summer, or is it like just during the school year?
Yeah, I work all year round. Yeah, so if students are available in the summer, I work with them as well. Many students would like to, sometimes go for internships in the summer, or you want to travel or go back home or something like that. That's fine, but some students stay here, and I usually stay here as well, so they can work in the summer.
They do research remotely as well, or is it, you have to be on?
I did some, of course, for the last couple of years, I did everything remotely. I usually prefer, we can work remotely for most of the time, but especially if students are still learning something, it's better to have, more time to work together. But it depends. I think it depends on the kind of project you work on.
Yeah, in the back.
Yes, this kind of goes off the question earlier. So, how long does a research project usually take?
Forever, I think.
Forever. It's a good answer. That's the only answer for that. Yeah, I think that really depends. First, it depends on your expectation, like what kind of delivery you want, right? Whether you want a workshop paper, maybe half a year, you can get it done at most 1 year. But if you want in EE, right, journal paper, or in CS in top tier conference, then that costs more time and the engagement. So there is no fixed time. Usually 1-2 years, I think it's very normal, especially if you want to get high quality work done. 2 years is not surprising, especially if it's since the beginning, right? You just entered the field. It totally makes sense to take 2 years to get one project done. And as Ahmed mentioned, it can easily be lifetime project, you see, like you are working on big data management. So this category of projects is going to last forever.
Yeah, I think sometimes for research you need to make a stop for yourself, because if you just let yourself work on it, you can keep doing research forever. You can keep improving things and find new problems and solve them. It just sometimes the problems at some point become a little bit incremental. You're just doing small improvements for a project. At that point, we usually like to stop and let someone continue it. But even for a project that would take, let's say, a couple of years, we can define some milestones or tasks along the way. So even if you work for a couple of quarters, you can still do something in it. So the project can keep going, and then someone else can continue on it. And that gets back to the point I mentioned earlier, that you need to be familiar and confident working with someone else's work, because someone might have started it and then you continue on it. I had that in the past. Like I had 3 or 4 students, undergraduate students, working on the same project over the course of 2 years, right? And someone just finished something, and sometimes they graduate or they stop working on this project, and then I give it to someone else to continue working on it.
Does anyone have any students or questions for the students? Yeah, right there.
What were your first projects? For example, you have to continue for Professor Eldway his code, right? What were some projects that you guys would have had?
Can you repeat the last part?
So, what are some projects that you guys had? What was your first project that you had to do?
So like before being a PhD student, I was a master student here. So maybe like that experience can be a relevant thing. So at that time, I joined the lab as a master student, and there was a project ongoing, which is like related to UCR staff. And like the visualization of the geospatial data sets was like doing, in a different method. So then I approached to Eldway and describe what I can do about it, and like maybe we can embed this geospatial data into like Google Maps or something like that. So like my first project was implementing this part. So it was like being a part of a research project and implementing something new to it, and like solving a little problem maybe on it, or like showing some interest on about like coming up a new idea or something similar to that. And my whole journey started like with that project, I can say, if I remember correctly, Professor.
Any last questions or any of them? Yeah, right there.
So like, do certain like projects get the stipend, or like, is there a push towards that? I'm just curious.
Stipend.
Answer for this?
I can answer, you can compliment. I think in general, PhD students, right, will be paid either by professors or by the department, depending on their research assistant or teaching assistant. Master, I think it depends on the budget, right? And not 100% paid, but undergraduate, we just say we are so poor. we cannot pay most of them, but there are some IEU research for undergraduate students, this kind of funding. And of course, when we have this kind of money, we pay for undergraduates.
Yeah, say in general, yeah, PhD students are paid for all their work, right? So if any of you decide to do PhD, don't expect to pay anything. I mean, you'll be paid for your entire PhD. That's the normal thing. Master students mostly are not paid. That's again not 100%, but most master students, we expect them to just do the master for a couple of years, not a couple of years, but usually a year and a half, mostly something like that, either a quarter or two quarters. But generally we would expect them to work as like a research assistants working with the project for a long time. So mostly they are not paid. Sometimes there are some paid positions, but most of the paid positions that master students take are not really research positions. But sometimes you work as graders or leaders for courses or other projects, other jobs. Sometimes they are paid, but very little. Undergraduates, usually for undergraduates we have like a special type of funding for undergraduate students, as John mentioned, like the research for undergraduates, right? The supplements for undergraduate researchers. So if we have something like that, we can pay you from that. If you don't, it might be a little bit harder. I did work with undergraduate students in the past without paying them, and I usually clear with them from the beginning. I told them, you know what, I don't have really funding for undergraduate students at this time, or maybe for this specific project, I don't really have undergraduate funding. So they're expected to work and just get the knowledge and experience, and that's it. But I also have other projects where I do have funding for them, so I can pay other undergraduate students. So I'd say it's a mix between these. It just depends on which funding is available. As I said, like especially for undergraduates, it's usually a special type of funding. So either I have it or I don't have it. It's not easy to move things around and find other money to pay you. It's either I do have money for undergraduate students, then I can pay you. If I don't, then you expect to work and just get experience and research, knowledge.
That's all the time we have. Yeah. 4 minutes over, but thank you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, that was pretty much the end of our panel. Thank you guys for coming out. We just have some last minute stuff if you want to stick around. The ACM club room is open. you go down there, you can check it out. There's a bunch of stuff for everybody to, use. There's going to be a social in there sometime, so please come out. There's a number of workshop. We have a sign-up sheet if you want to do something. If you want to have a little small niche that you want to express to ACM and I follow this one in Slack, all that good stuff. Also follow IEEE Solarcar. These slides will be up, so don't worry about it. And we have some upcoming events. Everybody's already looking for. We have a website series that's led by Vivian, and we're going to be making our website because the ACM website is highly outdated. So we're just going to have our members. And so we also have a workshop that's with James. And James is up here to talk about his workshop if you would like. Yes, James. Not AI specifically, but we're going to teach you how to use to power your hackathon projects and potentially like APIs or how you make your project really cool. We're going to go over how to send messages for you, and we're going to show you some machine learning tools that Google has built for you guys to play around with. So come by next week, same time as our general meeting. Yeah. Thank you, James.
Thank you.
So, and, we also have a fundraiser at the Getaway Cafe next week. You'll definitely get an update about that on our social media. And Cyber is also having a CTF practice tomorrow. Just shout out Cyber. The homies over there. And also, yeah, thank you. Thank you for coming out, guys.
Thank you.
See you guys next time. Have a good rest of your night.